In the pre-dawn darkness of June 13th, Israel launched a preemptive attack on Iran. Explosions rocked various parts of the country. Among the targets were nuclear sites at Natanz and Fordo, military bases, research labs, and senior military residences. By the end of the operation, Israel had killed at least 974 people, while Iranian missile strikes in retaliation had killed 28 people in Israel. Israel described its actions as anticipatory self-defense, claiming Iran was mere weeks away from producing a functional nuclear weapon. Yet intelligence assessment, including by Israeli ally, the United States, and reports by the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, showed no evidence of Tehran pursuing a nuclear weapon. At the same time, Iranian diplomats were in talks with U.S. counterparts for a possible new nuclear deal. But what is the future of all this destruction and conflicts? Let's try to find out. Israel was facing destruction at the hands of Iran. The Iranian regime was increasingly convinced in recent months that it would soon be able to destroy Israel. The destruction of Israel clock in Tehran's Palestine Square was not an exercise in bravado. It was a public countdown to what the Ayatollahs believed was Israel's imminent demise at their hands. Along with dismay that Yahya Sinwar had failed to consult and coordinate with them before invading southern Israel on October 7, 2023, the regime drew encouragement from the success of that massacre, its apparent confirmation of Israel's vulnerability, and the ongoing instability it had caused. Israel's elimination, the regime delightedly and rationally assessed, was truly at hand. And the fact is, apocalyptic as this certainly sounds, the assessment was reasonable. That is the sober, honest judgment of the military and security chiefs who told Israel's political leaders in recent months that Israel had to go to war against Iran, preferably in June, and certainly not much later, that the end of 2025 would be too late, that it was now or never, that Iran was a decision and a few weeks away from nuclear weapons, and that the regime's fast-growing ballistic missile capability was rapidly becoming an existential threat as well. The political leadership listened. It was persuaded, it coordinated with the U.S. administration, and Israel indeed went to war and saved itself. What is Iranians' POV? Ethicists and international lawyers draw a critical line between preemptive and preventive war. Preemption responds to an imminent threat and immediate assault. Preventive war strikes against a possible future threat. Only the former meets moral criteria rooted in the philosophical works of thinkers like Augustine and Aquinas, and reaffirmed by modern theorists like Michael Walzer, echoing the so-called Caroline formula, which permits preemptive force only when a threat is instant, overwhelming, and leaving no choice of means, and no moment for deliberation. Israel's raid, however, fails this test. Iran's nuclear capability was not weeks from completion. Diplomacy had not been exhausted, and the devastation risked, including radioactive fallout from centrifuge halls, far exceeded military necessity. The law mirrors moral constraints. The UN Charter Article 2:4 bans the use of force, with the sole exception in Article 51, which permits self-defense after an armed attack. Israel's invocation of anticipatory self-defense relies on contested legal custom, not accepted treaty law. UN experts have called Israel's strike a blatant act of aggression violating Just Kogan's norms. Such costly exceptions risk fracturing the international legal order. If one state can credibly claim preemption, others will too, from China reacting to patrols near Taiwan, to Pakistan reacting to perceived Indian posturing undermining global stability. The historical scars are real, but philosophers warn that words, however hateful, do not equate to act. Rhetoric stands apart from action. If speech alone justified war, any nation could wage preemptive war based on hateful rhetoric. We risk entering a global state of nature, where every tense moment becomes cause for war. But technology rewrites the rules. Technology tightens the squeeze on moral caution. The drones and F-35s used in Rising Lion combined to paralyze Iran's defenses within minutes. Nations once could rely on time to debate, persuade, and document. Hypersonic missiles and AI-powered drones have eroded that window, delivering a stark choice: act fast or lose your chance. The regime in Tehran responded by further accelerating its efforts to attain the bomb. It expanded its stockpiles of 60% enriched uranium. It made significant progress on weaponization. Its key scientists were conducting tests and simulations that underlined how close they were to completing the program. In breach of international treaties, in breach of an ostensible fatwa against nuclear weapons, those scientists were working to enable a rapid breakout to the bomb. At the same time, Iran stepped up its missile production capabilities. As Israel has publicly stated, Iran had built an arsenal of some 2,500 highly potent missiles, many with one-ton warheads capable of immense devastation, and was on track to have 4,000 by March 2026 and 8,000 by 2027. A conventional missile threat was becoming an existential danger, capable of overwhelming Israel's defenses, wreaking untenable death and destruction across Israel, and, if Israel was caught unawares, preventing the Israeli military from mustering an effective response. In such a world, the very idea that states must publicly justify acts of violence begins to erode. Tactical advantage, coined as relative superiority, leverages this compressed time frame, but gains ground at a cost. In an era where classified intelligence triggers near-instant reaction, ethical scrutiny retreats. Future first-move doctrines will reward speed over law and surprise over proportion. If we lose the distinction between peace and war, we risk losing the principle that violence must always be justified, not assumed. Who is the most dangerous man for Israel? Watching Iran with a far greater degree of intelligence penetration than the regime had realized, Israel's military and security planners had in February 2025 received the green light from the political echelon to preempt. Only one leading Iranian figure sensed just ahead of time that something was up. Amir Ali Hajizadeh, the aerospace chief of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, a U.S.-designated terrorist organization. Responsible for Iran's missiles and drones, Hajizadeh was perceived by Israeli security chiefs as the most dangerous man in Iran, no less, and was most certainly on the initial target list. Israel feared it had lost sight of him as it precision-targeted the key Iranian figures in those first minutes and hours, including in areas as precise as individual rooms in apartments on high floors of residential buildings. But Hajizadeh had dashed to a military bunker he believed was secure and convened key colleagues. And it was there that Israel found and eliminated him and 5 other top officers in the IRGC Air Force. Conclusion: without immediate course correction, the world risks a new norm: war before reason, fear before fact. The UN Charter depends on mutual trust that force remains exceptional. Every televised strike chips away at that trust, leading to arms races and reflexive attacks. To prevent this cascade of fear-driven conflict, several steps are essential. Preemptive war may, in rare cases, be morally justified, for instance, missiles poised on launch pads, fleets crossing red lines. But that bar is high by design. Israel's strike on Iran wasn't preventive. It was launched not against an unfolding attack, but against a feared possibility. Institutionalizing that fear as grounds for war is an invitation to perpetual conflict. The Iran-Israel war is more than military drama. It is a test. Will the world still hold the line between justified self-defense and unbridled aggression? If the answer is no, then fear will not just kill soldiers. It will kill the fragile hope that restraint can keep us alive. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more updates about the current affairs around the globe.